Okay, here I'm looking at Chili's lessons on pointers, through console applications, and this was worth pointing out, you know, that right here he's, declaring a couple of overloaded constructors, and, he's just basically saying, hey, that equals default. So that's a default constructor. That's an easier way of doing it than having to put the, well, I guess it's easier. I mean, I don't know. It's just clearer, to do it this way as opposed to just leaving empty scope, an empty scope there. Um, so, and you can see he's, basically assigning his member variables there, and let's see. I didn't know he had any member variables. X, where are they? Oh, they're down here. That's right. Chili typically defines his variables later in the code, which is probably not a bad, way of doing things, honestly. Again, I'll probably be doing things kind of Chili style, including the const correctness as much as I can. That shit can get tricky though, but a lot of that, especially when you're trying to learn how to code, some of that stuff gets kind of tricky. Um, anyway, I'll look at this. Oh, okay. That's one of the things that was kind of interesting about this. I discussed, you know, and he discusses this in actually some of his other lessons, but I started experimenting with it a little bit here. Which involves overloading operators. So this is how you do it. Vector is your function, then you use the keyword operator, then the operator you want to overload, okay, and then the right hand side or left hand side. There's a lot of examples of this in some of Chili's codes, um, framework, and so forth. Um, at least some of his programs. But that means RHS means right hand side. Again, that's just a passed in variable. I don't think RHS is some kind of special word or anything. I don't think, but it might be. But I think it's just your passed in variable. But anyway, this is still dealing with a reference to a right hand side, and but you can only overload standard operators. Just plus, minus, divide, you know, times, etc. You can't. Like make up your own operator. Believe me, I tried. Like the at sign or something. If you wanted a double, I don't know, a double, well, like a greater than or equal sign. You can't define that. To have it work like Visual Basic. So you can do logical comparisons. With greater and less than. Instead. If you wanted to do that for some reason. As a substitute for the not operator here. Which I don't know why you want to do that, but I mean, saying you could. That's just an example. Um, um, so anyway, but the point is that you can look into this more if you want to learn about it. So here I'm overloading a minus operator, but I never really do anything with it because this code really doesn't do anything. It's just me kind of fucking around as I was studying his lessons. Vector operator 2, got another set of constructors there. It's pretty much a duplicate of the above, except we're redefining the plus equals operator here. So, you can kind of read the little code here, the little notes I have here. So, um, so it's doing that, and then he's just this is really a lesson on pointers is what it's about. But unless I see anything here that really catches my eye, this is probably more basic than the stuff I've already covered. Maybe a type Beck. So Chili has this kind of annoying habit of wanting to redefine his own functions for everything. And I mean everything, and you're going to see that in the next lesson, where we deal with like string operators, and he wants to go make his own, which is kind of nice and dandy if you're new to programming. That's nice stuff to learn, but honestly, if you've been programming since the 70s like I have, you know, you kind of been around that that bend. So you've been around that, you've been on that drive before, you've been on that road before. So you know, it kind of gets a little old because I'd rather learn about the built-in functions, you know, in C instead of having to redefine my own, okay, string operator, you know, on how to, you know, reverse a string or whatever. I mean, or swap a string or, you know, what have you. I mean, they're built-in functions for that, you know, and you're wasting your time really learning these if you're just trying to learn C++. So, uh, and really for programming in general, because I mean, you know, he does go through his framework and redefines line commands and circle commands and stuff like that because DirectX doesn't have shit like that in it. So you kind of have to do that, you know, define your own line commands and everything in there. Again, that's why I don't really want to mess with DirectX, but you know, it's still kind of ridiculous doing that with string operators and you know, and just all the stuff he does. I mean, again, it's valuable if you're new to programming, but if you're a seasoned programmer, you know, again, I'm not new to coding, you know, I'm just new to C++. But if you're a seasoned programmer, that's not, you know, something that you know, it's just busy work, you know, I'll put it to you that way. In fact, his first, I don't know, 5 or 10 tutors, you know, in his new series were making me pull my hair out. It was just, you know, in some ways it was refreshing at first because it was, you know, like stuff I've done back in the 70s and 80s, you know, dealing with graphics at that primitive level. But the fact of the matter is that it still got old, but it was still nice to, you know, to get your feet wet with doing a C++. So, you know, had that value, but again, it did start getting old from my perspective, a little bit. But again, it's valuable to somebody that's completely new to it, and that's, you know, that's within the context of his. I'm not, you know, I'm not knocking him, you know, as far as what he's doing. I'm just saying for me, you know, it some of that got got a little old sometimes because it kind of beats around the bush too much for me as a programmer. So, as a seasoned programmer, I mean, I do understand a lot of basic programming concepts, just not in C++. So, you know, I mean, I've had, lots of experience in various types of basic. You know, starting back in the 70s, you know, practically everything ran basic. Um, you know, late 70s, you know, and throughout the 80s. But, you know, then, you know, more recently, you know, well, last 20 years, you know, I've been into Visual Basic, and then I've, you know, done, you know, Assembler for embedded programming, you know, assembly language on extensive projects in that. I've done, you know, had a little bit of experience with Pascal, you know, but I've just never broken down and learned C until recently. And I'm only doing this because I really want to learn C Sharp, and I want to learn Java, you know, which are all C-like languages. So, you know, and you know, C++ I did want to learn fully too because it's a powerful language. But anyway, and C is also, you know, heavily used for embedded applications. And again, it's, you know, I can write, you know, before this I could write C embedded applications, but boy, it was kind of tough not really knowing even C, let alone C++. But there's really not a lot to C, but then again, there is. So, you know, a lot of nuances to it. But at any rate, you know, I really won't, you know, I don't really see much here. You know, it's really just, you know, pretty basic, and this is, you know, where I'm, you know, discovering that, hey, arrays are pointers, and, you know, characters are fucking pointers too, really. You know, character arrays are. So, but like I said, yeah, I don't really, say, big long main function. Let's see. Let me just look this over. You know, but here's where you're, you know, kind of seeing the, you know, overloaded operators that we were messing with being used. You know, some parts of this code, because these creating his own vector object or whatever, I guess, and he wants to be able to add two of them together and crap, and you can kind of see see what's going on with it, that X, Y, and I put Z in here, and it shows that under certain circumstances, that can get lost. Um, but anyway, I'm going to go ahead and cancel or stop